There's something strange about silence when it's your own. My villa in Sacramento sits quietly at the edge of a winding street where rosemary grows wild along the side of the porch. Some people plant roses for beauty. I planted rosemary for memory. I've built a life here that no one else can claim. $10 million of glass, wood, and stone. But more than that, peace. No noise, no judgment, no sideways glances across dinner tables. Just me. My name isn't stitched on any family quilt. I was the youngest, the quietest, the one who took up the least space. Until one day, I decided to take space of my own. They didn't push me out. They just stopped making room. That morning, the rosemary outside shimmered with dew. I clipped a few sprigs, not for cooking, but out of habit. That scent, it always brought me back. I hated how it still had that power. The phone rang, breaking the quiet like glass shattering on tile. I didn't recognize the number at first, but my gut knew. I picked up anyway. "Hi, sweetheart," came the voice, polite, controlled. My mother never called unless she had a reason. This wasn't nostalgia. "I just wanted to let you know," she continued, "your sister's getting married. Isn't that lovely?" There was a pause, not for me to answer, but for her to continue. "It's going to be soon. Very small. Family only." I blinked at the kitchen window. The rosemary bush swayed gently. I heard her voice again in my head, but the words were heavier this time. Family only. I laughed, but nothing came out. "I am family," I said quietly. She cleared her throat. "Of course you are, dear, but you know how these things are. She just wants it simple." I couldn't remember the last time I had cried, but I remembered every time I'd swallowed the urge. This wasn't new. It was a pattern, one I kept pretending would break itself. After she hung up, the house felt colder. Not physically, but in a way that settled into the walls. The silence wasn't comforting now. It pressed in. I walked outside, barefoot, ignoring the cold concrete. The rosemary clipped earlier still sat on the counter, untouched. I picked it up and crushed a leaf between my fingers. That scent. Junior year. Locked out of the house because I'd forgotten to pick up my sister's dry cleaning. I sat on the porch for hours. No apology ever came. That smell takes me back there every time. When do you stop chasing people who only slow down enough to remind you that you're behind? I made coffee I didn't drink. My hands moved through routines like muscle memory, but my mind was stuck somewhere between 17 and 38, between trying to be seen and realizing you never were. Growing up, she was always the one they bragged about, the golden one. Her wins were banners, mine were footnotes. I stopped telling them when something good happened. There was no applause, just comparisons. I once offered to pay off one of Dad's medical bills. Mom looked at me like I was trying to buy affection. Maybe I was, but they never cashed the check. A neighbor dropped by later. Sweet woman, means well. She mentioned seeing something online, my family in a big celebration. "Must be a wedding coming up, huh?" she said, laughing. "Small, huh?" I stood there, smiling, nodding, while my stomach twisted into something sour. I didn't call back. I wanted to. I had all the questions lined up like a courtroom script. But why wasn't I invited? What did I do wrong? What do I need to fix? And then I stopped. Asking for clarity from someone who's always made you feel invisible doesn't lead to answers. It just reaffirms that invisibility. Instead, I wrote in my journal, not the kind with affirmations or gratitude lists, just a yellow legal pad and a pen that worked too well. The words bled fast. I let the sadness crystallize into something sharp, something structured. This wasn't about a wedding. It was about 20 years of being quietly erased. And now they wanted to remember me? Now. That evening, the phone rang again. I let it go to voicemail, but I already knew what it was. Her voice played through the speaker, light, pleasant, no apology, no hesitation. "Hey, sweetie, just wondering, would it be all right if we used your villa for a few days? It's perfect for the out-of-town guests." My breath caught, not in confusion, but clarity. They didn't want me at the wedding. They wanted my house. I stared at the phone long after the message ended, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I finally did. The morning felt like any other, at least for a while. I brewed my coffee, watered the rosemary bush, and checked my emails. Half work, half newsletters I forgot to unsubscribe from. The usual hum of life that fills a quiet house. But today the silence was different. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that whispers, "They've moved on without you." The phone didn't ring. Not once. No follow-up. No, "Oops, we made a mistake." Just an eerie stillness that stretched too long. I told myself it didn't matter, that I was past needing anything from them. But a small voice, the one I've spent years trying to silence, still hoped. Maybe there'd been a miscommunication. Maybe Mom hadn't meant what she said. Maybe, just maybe, someone would remember I existed. By noon I stopped pretending. That hope turned into weight. Not crushing, but familiar, like putting on an old coat that still smells like winter spent alone. Later that afternoon my phone buzzed, a message from a friend I hadn't spoken to in months. "Your mom looks lovely tonight." I stared at the screen. Tonight? Lovely? What was happening tonight? Curiosity shoved past pride. I opened social media, and the answer slapped me in the face. Photos. Dozens. My entire family gathered at Odelia's fiancé's house. A long table set under strings of warm lights, the kind they use in magazines to sell intimate moments. Everyone smiling, wine glasses raised, dressed to the nines, and the caption, "Family dinner before the big day." I wasn't in a single photo, not even mentioned. I zoomed in on the centerpieces, my custom napkin folds, the ones I had made years ago for Thanksgiving, the last time they'd let me host. They reused them, didn't ask, didn't credit. I muttered aloud, "So it was family only. I just don't count." My voice sounded strange, thin, like it didn't believe itself. I didn't cry. I just sat there, letting each image sink into my chest like bricks. Frame by frame, I saw them toasting, laughing, toasting again. And there I was, not even a shadow. This wasn't a new feeling, just a louder version of an old song. Flashbacks hit like skipped records. Group texts I was left out of. Parties they forgot to invite me to. The year I mailed gifts and never got a thank you. The Christmas I spent alone while they posted pictures with matching sweaters and captions like "Everyone's here." They've always been good at erasing without actually deleting. It's subtle, wrapped in smiles, covered in explanations. "Oh, we thought you were busy. We figured you didn't like that kind of thing." It was just a last-minute thing. No, it was never last minute. It was always deliberate. I thought about something my dad used to say before he stopped really talking to me. Some people are just extra, you know? I didn't understand it then. I do now. I was always the extra chair, convenient, but never essential. Then, as if the universe wanted to underline the insult, I got another message. This time from my cousin Jacob. "You still keeping the villa empty this weekend?" My stomach flipped. I replied, "Why?" His response came too fast. "I think they're trying to shift the after party there." Odelia mentioned it. They were talking about my house like it was community property, like I was some Airbnb host they didn't need to pay. No one asked. They just assumed, like always. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I let the anger rise. Not wild, but focused. Cold. Strategic. This wasn't pain. This was something else. Later that evening, just after the sun dipped low, a black SUV pulled up outside the gate. I watched from the kitchen window. A man in a blazer stepped out, holding a bouquet and a small envelope. I opened the door but didn't step outside. "Delivery for Madeline," he said, offering the flowers and card. I took them without a word. Inside, I opened the envelope. A simple card, blank except for one line. "Thank you for opening your home. It means so much to the family." No name, no handwriting, just a printed message. Transactional. Cold. I stared at it, then looked around my home. The floors I'd picked out tile by tile, the art I'd chosen with care, the scent of rosemary still lingering in the kitchen. They wanted this space, but not me. I didn't call. I didn't respond. I walked to the front gate and locked it manually. It clicked shut with finality. "You don't get to borrow me when it's convenient," I whispered. I poured a glass of red wine and sat by the window. The air was still. The house quiet. This was my sanctuary. They didn't build it. They didn't pay for it. They didn't earn it. I thought of something Maya Angelou once said. "When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. They'd shown me. Over and over again. I opened my journal, flipped past the last entry, and wrote one line. You can't erase someone who owns the deed. That morning, I made my coffee strong, letting the bitterness settle in before taking a sip. I stared at the card on the table. Delicate, pretty, impersonal. The gift meant nothing without acknowledgement. Outside, the rosemary bush rustled in the wind, its leaves dry. I couldn't swallow the warmth of the day. I opened my laptop, fingers hovering over the screen. I drafted an email. Revoke access to villa premises unless formal invitation is issued. I stopped. Couldn't press send. Habit, fear, respect tangled inside me. I told myself I was overreacting. But that nagging voice I'd silenced for years whispered I wasn't. A ping from my phone pulled me back. A notification. Graduation photos added. My parents. My sister. Their faces beamed across a screen that I wasn't in. I remembered that day. They said work prevented them from attending. 6 years old, smiling in a gown that felt too grown up. My sister got a trip. I got a secondhand bracelet. Two worlds defined, one of celebration, one of absence. I blinked, swallowed hard. It was all there, but never mine. The villa deed lay in a folder on my desk, dusty corners, yellowed paper, and precise signatures. I had bought this villa myself, piece by piece, after my divorce. No help, no loan, no family check-ins, just me signing mortgage, paying bills, repairing leaks. Yet those same people treated me like the villa was theirs to assume, to use, to borrow when convenient, never once thanking, never once including. I texted Mom, just confirming, no events planned at the villa this weekend. Her reply came fast. Don't be petty. We thought you'd be supportive. No apology, no question, just expectation masked in offense. I didn't reply. Support is not silence. Support is respect. Respect is asking. Late that morning, I got an email from the wedding planner. Subject, venue logistics. Body, parking passes, guest entrance, valet routes, all running through my driveway. I looked at the map. My driveway was an artery for their plans. My property's outline, once bright in the surveyor's map, now treated as nothing more than backdrop. It was never request, it was assumption. Assumption that I'd allow them to draw lines over my life without so much as a conversation. I didn't stand up. I didn't shout. I sat and closed the email. My fingers trembled. I paced the living room, then walked through the villa, inspecting locks, checking cameras, adjusting lights. This house shielded me. This house defined me. If they believed my success meant surrender, then they didn't see me. When the sun dipped, I received a plain envelope. Inside was a note without signature. Thank you for opening your home. Means a lot to everyone. Printed. Disingenuous. The words felt like a smudge of insult. They wanted to use my home. Did they want me at all? I collected the photo album I shared with Family Cloud Storage, the one with beach trips, birthdays, nights of laughter. I deleted it. I didn't need their memories if they used them to erase me. That felt like choosing integrity over illusion. I wrote a note in my journal. You can't erase someone who owns the deed. That's when I realized this isn't about accommodation. It's about identity. It's about being seen. Maybe they wouldn't honor me, but I'll honor myself. Late that night, I walked to the front porch. The air was cool, the sky dim, the gate was closed. The house was quiet, but breathless. In the darkest hour, certain truths shine brightest. They had assumed I would remain invisible. The wind rustled rosemary leaves. I watched the shadows dance across the porch. I opened the front door to see my mother standing there, as if she belonged. I did not expect peace. I expected confrontation. I woke up that morning to birds chirping and sunlight bleeding through my curtains. The villa grounds were silent. I made my way outside, steps heavy, and saw it, the rosemary bush, trimmed. Someone had crossed a line. I remember planting those bushes, hands cold from early spring air, squeezing soil, measuring space, stake by stake. This was more than pruning. It was a message. Your boundaries don't matter. Inside, I dressed slowly. Jeans, a shirt, shoes that aren't soft. I needed to leave the house. I needed distance to see clearly what I was feeling. Conflict, betrayal, a knot in my chest. Then the voicemail clicked in. Hey, I wanted to check in. Thanks for being so understanding about everything. I know it's been difficult, but you've handled it so well. Words I loathe. Praise that feels like a leash. Like they're grateful I'm quiet, pliable, invisible. I sat, breathing shallow, feeling both used and recognized. That backhand cut deeper than exclusion. At lunch, I bumped into Mrs. Williams, a neighbor I liked. She smiled. I heard Odelia said you're the strong one, the quiet backbone of this family. She meant well, but so much hurt folded beneath that compliment. On one side, strength. On the other, erasure. Backbone. Invisible support, not visible presence. I went home, phone in hand, and saw Marla's Instagram story. Soft lighting, floral arrangements, laughter. Odelia's voice in video. Lowell has always kept us strong, even when things were tough. My name there, but it stung. Strong, yes, but invited. Recognized, no. Keeping family together often means carrying weight alone. Flashbacks came. Behind-the-scenes weekends when Marla hosted, Mom cooked, me in the kitchen wiping counters. My success praised behind closed doors. My wins minimized in public. Thank you messages sent in private group chats, never spoken aloud in front of company. I closed my eyes. Strength isn't virtue if it costs your identity. I dialed Marla, my voice calm. Why do I get praise for doing nothing but being present? Her words were smooth. Because that's what family does. Present means there to be used. I asked quietly, is it too much to ask to be invited before someone borrows my living room for photos? She paused. Changed topic. That hesitation, everything I needed to know. Back at the villa, I sat at my desk, drafted an email to the planner. Unless I receive a direct invitation or written agreement, the villa remains private. Didn't send yet. I contacted a lawyer, asked Delton for access logs, who enters, when, whose faucet was on. Checked the old deed history again. Nothing unauthorized, nothing unlawful, but so many assumptions. Later, a delivery arrived, a framed painting, depicting the villa, but under a small brass plaque, to the sister who always stays silent. Tray of flowers, card, but those words stabbed. Silence, wrapped in praise. I touched the plaque, packed it away. I'm not furious, I'm alert. A gift isn't valid when it's from someone who's erased you. Night fell. I stood by the villa door, the porch light dim. Outside, footsteps. I peered through the peephole. Marla, keys in hand. She wanted me to open the door. My heart pounded. I didn't want to sink into old patterns. I didn't want to unlock yet another betrayal. I held the knob, just there. She expected me to open. I thought, I could turn the knob, or I could lock it forever. I didn't open the door that night. Instead, I pressed the intercom button and kept my voice even. Marla, you can't just show up here. She tried the guilt play. I just wanted to see the house before the big day. You know how important this is to Odelia. That's funny, I said. She didn't think I was important enough to invite. There was a pause, then the shuffle of her shoes on the welcome mat, and finally retreating steps. But as she turned back toward her car, she gave me a look, not angry, not apologetic, just a warning. This wasn't over. It never is with her. I collapsed on the couch after she left. Not because of the exchange. My words had been steady, my face calm, but because of what had built up behind that moment. Years of being questioned, guilted, gaslit into silence. Grandma once told me, just because someone calls you family doesn't mean they see you as one. At the time, I'd nodded and smiled. I understand her now in a way I didn't before. The next morning, I heard the mail drop. Among the usual flyers and catalogs, a thick envelope stuck out. No return address, but I knew before I opened it, it was addressed to Villa Owner. Not even my name. Inside, a printed itinerary from the wedding planner. Hours, vendor drop-off times, valet access, guest limits, code entry instructions, and even parking maps. It read like a contract I'd already signed, but I hadn't, and I wouldn't. Tucked inside was a copy of the wedding program. Odelia and her fiancé front and center, a list of bridesmaids, groomsmen, and family acknowledgments. My name wasn't there. Not even a mention. Like I didn't exist. They planned everything assuming I'd fold, again. I sat at the kitchen table and pulled out a red pen. Started crossing out line after line. It wasn't about ink or edits. It was a declaration, a new kind of boundary. They weren't erasing me this time. That afternoon, I called an old friend from college, someone who had become a therapist. "Is it bad," I asked, "if I don't feel love for them anymore?" She was quiet for a moment, then said, "No. It means your spirit is protecting you." I stared at the fridge where I'd once taped up childhood photos, me and Marla in our teens, birthdays, holidays. I walked over, peeled one off. The smile I saw wasn't joy, it was compliance. That smile had kept peace. But at what cost? I dropped the photo into a donation box I'd been half-filling for weeks. I stood over it, then whispered, "I can't keep building bridges with people who keep lighting matches." That night, I got a message from the lawyer. He'd finalized the notice. "No event may be hosted without written consent from the property owner," it read. Direct, legal, clear. We sent copies by email and mail, one to Marla, one to the planner, with red receipts on both. Then I walked the villa grounds. Called Delton to confirm the new access logs were working. Security cameras, upgraded, motion-tracked, and shared with my trusted neighbor. I asked her, "If you see anything strange, just shoot me a text." She nodded without questions. I walked the backyard in silence. The patio where Dad used to grill, the chairs where Marla's kids once played, the swing Mom sat on while pretending not to judge me. That house held echoes, not love. Later, I wrote a line in my journal. Family isn't who shows up for the celebration. It's who stands with you in the silence. The next evening, the doorbell rang. I opened it halfway. Marla was standing there again. This time, with Odelia. They had iced coffees in hand, like it was just another errand day. They smiled like nothing had happened, like they hadn't bulldozed every boundary I set. Odelia stepped forward. "We just want to talk. You're overreacting." I didn't move. "Letting people walk all over you isn't peace," I said. "It's permission." Marla's tone changed. "You're tearing the family apart." "No," I said. "I'm just not holding it together anymore." The air between us thickened. Nobody reached for their coffee. Nobody joked. Just silence. Odelia looked at me and said, "You've made your choice." Marla added, "But we'll see what happens when the guests arrive." I closed the door slowly. My hands didn't shake. Later, I sat at my desk and opened my email. Drafted a message to the extended family. Nothing mean, just the truth. The version of events nobody else had heard. I didn't send it yet, but tomorrow they'll hear my version of the story. Unfiltered. I sat in the villa office, laptop open, Phoebe's coffee gone cold beside me. My eyes were drawn to the screen where Delton, the villa's caretaker, whispered with one of the wedding vendors outside the guest parking area. I froze. Couldn't breathe. Through the glass, I saw blueprints spread on a clipboard, seating lines, arrows, vendor pathways over my driveway. Someone had drawn service roads across my property. Authority without permission. A boundary violated. My chest tightened. Identity is more than land. It's what people assume and what they steal by presumption. I closed the laptop without speaking. I watched vendor and caretaker walk away as if property lines were invisible. If they think I'm invisible, this tape just proves I see. That night, I opened the leaked blueprint file. I watched as guest flow paths and vendor routes cut across my driveway like mapped trespass. There were vendor zones too close, vendor parking that used my front gate. I remembered my old days with drafting tables, measuring line weights, knowing how maps declare what's yours. This isn't oversight. This is design based on someone's idea I would stay silent. Rage simmered. I drafted a message. These plans are invalid until you acknowledge my property lines. I typed, deleted, cooled my breath. Sleep wouldn't come. My mind replayed every moment family used my home like common ground. I gathered documents, property deed, surveyor's map, official papers. I scanned them all, called a surveyor. Yesterday's corners updated, stakes placed, lines painted in invisible geometry. I ordered boundary signage, private property, Villa of Lowell, Rayburn. Every person who enters must know where line lies. I showed Delton the survey results, showed the map, lines clear. He avoided my gaze, nodded. Emotion shifted. Hurt became anger. Anger transposed into action. Late afternoon, a note slid under my door. No signature. Stop wasting money on lawyers. Family doesn't sue family. My hand shook. Threat or warning? Probably both. I stared at my reflection in the window pane. Someone who is suing themselves for a family picture. I thought of Angela Davis. I refused to accept injustice. My resolve bolstered. Visibility over silence. If being invisible costs dignity, I choose visibility. I drafted a post to the family group chat, listing breaches, displaying evidence, naming omissions. Before sending, my phone buzzed. Message from Marla. Let's not air family matters in public. I hesitated. I knew public meant vulnerability, maybe backlash, but private silence had already cost me too much. I finalized the draft, backed it up. I planned how to present. Video with copies, lawyer on call, printed evidence ready. Night came. The villa lights dimmed. I sat on the porch. The garden smelled of rosemary and distant rain. Then tires, headlights through the trees. An unfamiliar car, silhouette of Simone Calder. Camera bag in the back seat. She stepped toward me with that calculated calm. Marla wants proof you saw the blueprint, she said. She wants transparency. I gripped the evidence folder tight. The storm inside me was no longer silent. I woke early on the wedding day to gutters rattling with rain, the sky heavy as if it knew this day would break something. I pressed my hands against the window pane, watching vendors unload linens and chairs. The driveway glistened wet. Rose bushes on the porch reflected every drop. I touched their petals once planted by me, bought with my money. My reflection in the mirror showed a steady woman. I made my hair right. Chose a dress that didn't hide me. Then a message came from Marla. See you at the ceremony. No apology, no name, just duty assumed. My heart hammered, not because I was afraid, but because I had something to lose. I drove toward the venue, route familiar until signs reading Rayburn Family Front Entrance seized my breath. They used my name for decoration, not for recognition. I slowed, memories pushing. As a child, I watched Marla pose for photos under banners with my parents. I waited for my turn. There was never one. Now, signs posted. Chairs lined, ribbons tied. I arrive, greeted politely but as a guest, not owner. Staff smiled like I belonged but also didn't. Trays passed, glances exchanged. I was escorted outside the seating area just beyond the rope. I could see them. I could hear laughter. No one asked if I wanted seat. I stood, visible, silent. Inside, a large framed photo hung near the ceremony arch, the same layout I designed for flower placements and stage. My name on a plaque beneath, but it said Villa Owner, Marla Fenwick. My heart twisted. A guest whispered across a table. They always treat Lowell as the helper, not the owner. I felt flame rise under skin. They had stolen not only my house, but my story. A lie hung in golden frame. I thought, they won't steal my home, but they want to steal my story. After the ceremony, Marla stepped to the podium. She raised a glass. Applause followed. Every face gathered around flickered like film grain. She said thank you to Lowell for letting us use your home for tonight. My stomach sank. I did not rise. Instead, I walked forward. Voice calm. No tremor. There are things you may not know. I revealed deed, invitations, the printed program sans my name. Proof projected on screen. Faces caught in light. Gasps. Marla tried to push back. That's not what I meant. But I spoke louder. Named names. What was assumed, what was taken, what was edited out. Silence followed. My mother's eyes glistened, lips parted. My sister's smile faded backstage. I stood in the grand room, chest open, saying truths I'd held quiet for decades. Someone I hadn't seen since childhood grabbed me by the arm. I always wondered why you stayed quiet, she said softly. Thank you for speaking. I nodded, voice heavy, but sure. As nightlights bloomed over the reception, I slipped out a side door. Heels clicked on wet pavement. A voice called, Lowell, wait! Marla stood in the doorway. Box in hand. She looked small under the chandelier. I hesitated at the car door. Something in me wanted to trust. Something in me didn't. I walked forward and she offered the box. Inside, a single key. And a note, handwritten. I was wrong. The reception hall pulses with light and laughter. Curtains sway, music hums under voices, soft then loud. I sit near the edge, dress chosen not to hide anything but to feel true, honest in its simplicity. Camera flashes catch familiar faces, the ones who once turned away, now forced to look. My heart hammers. Phones lifted, eyes trained. Marla stands, glass in hand, raises a toast. To family always being there. Applause, polite. I inhale knowing I'm about to speak a truth no one asked me to reveal but needed to hear. I ask the DJ to stop the music. The room quiets. I clear my throat. A voice over the speakers. Odelia's recorded her private admission. She confesses she deleted my name, changed invitations, assumed I'd never notice. Silence drops. My stomach twists. Faces shift. Odelia's expression slackens. I want to scream, but I let the audio speak. Years compressed into seconds. This moment isn't revenge. It's vindication. I have gathered evidence, observed the lies, and now I let the confession echo where denial once lived. Somewhere, someone live streams. My phone buzzes, dozens of messages. Finally saw her side. You deserve this. So proud you stood up. Marla tries to interrupt, but I raise my voice. You assumed I was quiet. You forgot I was listening. The confession spreads across social media. Clips, comments, reflections. Vulnerability meets triumph. My hands shake, not weak, but alive, honest. No more whispers behind closed doors. The exposure is difficult, but necessary. Odelia retreats to the suite. Marla stands by the buffet, face pale. Guests shift. Some avoid me, others nod in support. My mother sits at the head table, eyes glossy, lips still. A child I once knew approaches. I'm sorry I didn't believe you sooner. Guilt passes in her voice. Others murmur, was that too much? But what I know now is this. Exposure cost me comfort, but gained me respect. I am seen. I slip outside onto the balcony. Cool air hits my skin. I pull out my phone camera and go live. I recount what the world didn't see. Proof, omissions, acts of assumption. I read from my journal. Words matter. Silence empowers lies. I do not seek perfection. I only ask accountability. I invite them all to listen. Not for their forgiveness, but for my clarity. The villa behind me glows in string lights. I feel exposed, vulnerable, but also unstoppable. A car rolls to the gate, surprise. It's Thatcher, lawyer in hand, breathless. You need to see this, he says. He holds up my phone. An article headline looms. Sacramento villa owner speaks out. My breath catches. The screen lights up my face. Relief, fear. They are wrapped together. I step down from the balcony, heart pounding. Tonight, I do not hide. I sit by the koi pond, tea in hand, late afternoon light warming the tiles. The wedding chaos has ended. The guests have gone. There's quiet in every room, in every echo, in the way the garden breathes. I look out at water that used to reflect worry. Now it mirrors peace. I close my eyes. I acknowledge how tired I've become. Not just because of what they did, but because of what I let them do. Jasmine drifts through the air. Grandma used to say that meant calm was coming. I breathe, whisper. No more pretending. No more performing. A courier appears at the gate, a plain envelope, unsealed sender. I recognize the handwriting. Odelia's. I break the seal. Inside, a letter. Apology. Not grand, but honest. She writes about being mom's shadow, about envying how I live, about the villa, about independence. She doesn't excuse the lies, but confesses inadequacy. She says she thought hiding mistakes was better than being vulnerable. My eyes sting. It's not perfect. It's something. I hold the paper still. Mixed feelings fill me. Relief, sadness, acceptance. After that, I go up into the attic room. Old photo albums lie stacked. I open one. Child smiles, toddlers, tiny hands in hands before everything cracked. I see one photo. Both of us as toddlers, parents between us, young laughter. Did peace ever live there? I flip pages. See years shaped by someone else's narrative. I recall how mom planned birthdays, how she shaped beliefs, how control wore her voice. One photo I used to like. Now I see the distance. Hurt people hurt people. I place photos back, promise inside me. I will stop repeating cycles. I will write my own story. Dawn next morning, though light comes late in the garden. I watch from the balcony, the gate swinging, a car pulling out. Marla in the passenger seat, eyes down. She never waves goodbye, doesn't look back. She barely nods. That absence echoes. I feel it. I no longer crave her approval. I no longer long to be chosen. Part of me hopes she finds peace. Another part mourns the mother I never had. I walk down stone steps into the yard. I meet with my contractor when repainting walls, restoring wood, replacing worn stone. Not to erase memories, but to frame them differently. The villa becomes my place of choice, not place of exile. I host a small gathering, book reading, support circle for those who've known family silence. My story becomes connection, not shame. I record myself for a podcast. We don't all get the family we deserve, but we can build the one we need. I send that out into the world. That line becomes my anchor. In my study, I journal the final words for now. Healing isn't loud. Sometimes it's just quiet strength. I close the journal. There's a knock. Doorbell rings. I open. A young woman stands there, suitcase in hand. She looks tired, hopeful. She asks, "Are you the one who spoke out?" "I have a story too." I smile. I say, "Come in." "You're safe here."